You can't go out playing golf having fun.
Fun. Senor, you have obviously never played Wingfoot.
It don't matter if you win by an inch or a mile. Winning's winning.
You've got to be kidding me, Vegas. On Monday night. There's my picks for this week. Now, if you want next week's picks, I can give you those by Friday.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Week 3 of the NFL season and the Wingfoot Locks. We are coming to you later than usual in the week, and we are sorry for that, but we are going to have as many winners, if not more, than we did last week to keep it going on the positive track. And we've got Greg Hoyle back with us live. Chris Bortente, we've got his picks via video, so you'll hear those as well, and we will pick them apart. But let's get right to it. Greg, I know there's a lot of games that you like on the slate this week. Which one do you want to start with?
Yeah, I want to start with so we can get over with, but I'm gonna take the points with Detroit, and I'm just gonna swoop in here. So the Eagles just have cluster injuries, a defensive tackle, wide receiver. I think they're going to look a lot better with the game plan this week, being able to actually lay out a game plan. I don't yet know if Goddard is going to play on tight end. I think that would be helpful, but Detroit's really good about the run, and that means that the Philly game plan likely should lean on throwing the ball around, and I just don't really like that. And on the flip side, Detroit, I think, can hurt Philly on in the secondary. Darby's been getting abused by wide receivers, Galladay, Marvin Jones. I think those are a couple of good wide receivers there. So, we are looking, I think we're looking at a tight game, and in the worst case situation, Philly likes to play those stupid sticks defense there, giving up some pretty chunk plays, and they'll slide into a prevent. So the back door might be open, but I think this game's going to be closer. I like Philly to win, but I would definitely, if you caught it early and got the 7, great, but I'll still take it at 6, hold my nose, and move on.
I'm going to touch on a couple things. I know you want to get off picking against your Eagles here, but they had a rough game on Monday night against Atlanta. A lot of injuries, including Carson Wentz, who went out and missed the series. And Jim Schwartz this week, I think, has said that they lost Malik Jackson as well, which is going to put a lot of pressure on their secondary if they can't get pressure on the quarterback. What did you make of the injuries they had in that game against the Falcons and the final outcome there?
Yeah, so first off, Sunday night game. So they're on full rest, but it was a physical game. And I think the biggest letdown, and Chris is going to handicap this in his, I think the biggest impact you're going to see is really the appearance that we get on Atlanta. The fact that Philly still had a chance to win that game is an indictment on Matt Ryan not hitting wide open receivers. Malik Jackson was out after week 1. It's Timmy Jernigan who ended up in a walking boot, and that's your second defensive tackle. So you're going to be looking at 4th and 5th D tackles out there with Fletcher Cox. So that's why we're talking about, I don't know that the pass rush is going to get home. They only have 2 sacks so far this season, right? So if you're looking at a 4th and a 5th D tackle here, so I think they know the injuries, so they'll be able to scheme for it a lot better. And I think Atlanta got them in a good situation because most of those injuries happened either during the game or in the first quarter or during warm-up. So yeah, I don't like that D tackle. Malik Jackson is out for the season. Timmy Jernigan's in a walking boot. I don't know how long he's out for. But yeah, that's not good.
And one more note from this week, Doug Peterson opting to go with walkthroughs instead of full practice for the team, which means he's fully aware how banged up those guys are this week. So the play is... Go ahead.
We're talking about practice?
Yes, we're talking about practice this week. Hey, I think that could be a big role with a lot of guys in roles that traditionally they're not used to, like Nelson Aguilar moving into the number 1 spot, possibly with Alshon Jeffrey and Deshaun Jackson down. That's a whole different route tree that you got to be looking at there.
Aguilar is going to stay in the slot. You're going to see Hollins and Arcega Whiteside if they stay heavy on Aguilar and Ertz like they did in the second half, right? So Philly had a good second half, right? But again, I think the Lions are going to see it coming. So it's going to be a lot of Aguilar, a lot of Ertz. I think both teams are going to score, but six is way too many.
All right. There it is, and that's from a Phillies fan, folks. So take the points and go with Detroit at 6. You might want to bump it up to 7 if you can get it. Now, Greg, you mentioned that Chris has a play on the game that correlates with this based on the Eagles and Falcons last week. So we're going to go to his pick in Indianapolis as they host the Atlanta Falcons this week.
What's up, everybody? Happy Saturday. Sorry I can't be with you guys live this week, but nevertheless, I got this week's games broken down and a few games we're ready to lock up. So why don't we get started and ready to roll? So right off the bat, I like this week, okay? I like the Indianapolis Colts, all right? The Colts are playing at home against the Atlanta Falcons. The line opened up at 3. It's already down to 1.5, and I've seen it in 1 at some places. That line dropping is a complete overreaction to the Falcons getting off the schneid last week. The Falcons played well, and they won what I deem to be a must-win game. But they also played against a Philadelphia team that I had a feeling they were going to be out of sync on the road, and they were. And all the injuries they encountered last week didn't help, and that aided in Atlanta getting that big win. I think Atlanta's going to go into the Colts this week and revert back to the form that they were in the first couple of weeks, and I think they're going to have some trouble. Not to mention that the Falcons are 1-9 straight up and 0-10 against the spread in their past 10 games against AFC teams, okay? And in addition to that, the Colts are 4-1 against the spread as well as straight up in the past 5 games against NFC teams. Now I know those numbers are based on Andrew Luck being the quarterback, but again, Jacoby Brissett is not that bad, and the Colts with Brissett aren't as bad as most people think. So hop on the Colts, laying the 1.5, and lock it up.
Yeah, I like the pick. I already just kind of touched on the fact that I think the Atlanta team, basically gets some pretty good perception, but they eked out a win at home. Quite frankly, if Aguilar catches that ball fading down the sideline, we might be talking about a much different spread here going on, and Atlanta rolling into this game 0-2. So yeah, give me the Colts at home. I'm pretty impressed. This is kind of fade against Atlanta, but I think the Colts have looked pretty good. Pretty good at the Chargers. Played a good game, and I definitely like them to come out and win at home.
One of the things from that Eagles game is Atlanta got a ton of pressure up from their front four. Do you think that's more? Do you think that says something about Atlanta's line, and how much better do you think Indianapolis's line is than Philly's when it's going to come to protecting Jacoby Brissett in this case?
So as far as the rankings, they're ranked pretty similar. If you go back and look at the Atlanta game, Isaac Seumalo is a guy on Philly that's taking a ton of heat. Basically, it's the left guard that was turnstile there. So I just think that was, again, just a little amplified from really one guy lacking. I mean, the Colts, everyone, you guys saw what Marlon Mack did week 1 there, and the Colts, offensive line is highly ranked. That's why everyone liked Marlon Mack and the Colts going into this year. So that offensive line hasn't changed. And correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think they've had any major injuries on it.
No, they're still very healthy.
Yeah, and at home, you're not going to have the noise or anything like that, right, that you would get in Atlanta, messing up the offensive line on the other team. So, yeah, I would definitely, fade Atlanta coming off of a big win there. And these look pretty good.
One more question for you on this. Do you think something is wrong with Matt Ryan? He has turned the ball over a ton. You mentioned he missed some open receivers deep at home in that game against the Eagles. He doesn't look like the quarterback that he's been in years past.
No reported injuries. I'm not going to speculate. So no comments.
All right. We will see where that turns into. With that, I think the marquee matchup of the week might be the Baltimore Ravens heading to Kansas City to take on the Chiefs. This will be the home opener. Oh, yeah, one more note that we wanted. This is the home opener for a couple teams this week, including Indianapolis, and also for Kansas City as the Chiefs host the Ravens. Chris has a play on this one, and it actually includes the Wingfoot lock, so let's go to him and see what he has to say on this.
Really, really like this week the Baltimore Ravens. The Baltimore Ravens getting 6.5 points on the road from the Kansas City Chiefs is this week's Wingfoot lock. All right, now let me tell you something. The Chiefs are tough. They're a tough out, I understand. And the Chiefs are 9-1 straight up at home, but in the last 10 games. But the Chiefs in the last 10 games against the spread, only 6-4, okay? Not that great. Also, the Ravens, okay, are 10-4-1 against the spread in their last 15 road games. Those are some good numbers. And the last year, when the Ravens played Kansas City, they hung tough and they lost a tough battle, 27-24 in overtime. And the Ravens this year are a completely different team. I think everybody's picturing a shootout this year, this Sunday, back and forth. And when you picture shootouts, you picture Mahomes at home in Kansas City, and you say he can't be beat. Okay, and I understand all that, but I don't think it's going to be a shootout. I think they're going to, the same way they shocked everybody in the first 2 games, the Ravens, by going to the aerial attack when everybody was expecting ground. I think this week they go to the ground. I think they fall on that ground game with Lamar and the Ravens, and I think that they use big-time play action and use big-time plays down the field off the run to expose that weak secondary of Kansas City, and I think they use that to hang in the game. I think it's going to be a back-and-forth battle, and I think it's going to come down to the wire, and I think 6.5 is too much. I'm not sure the Ravens can win this game, but I think this game comes down to the wire. So I say take the 6.5 points and lock it up, because that's the Wingfoot lock of the week. The Baltimore Ravens getting 6.5 on the road in Kansas City.
Yeah, I mean, give me the points, right? If you're a football fan, which I know all of us are, this is a great game to watch. I think the narrative is a little too easy that Baltimore is going to control the game, keep Mahomes off the field with the run game. I don't know. I like this kind of going back and forth, and I think it's kind of a last team with the ball is going to win the game type of situation. So when we're in that type of situation, I want the points. I don't think, I think it'll probably be a touchdown that puts somebody ahead. But it's, down by 3, win by 4 type of situation. The Ravens have looked good. I know it hasn't been great competition, but they've looked good. Chiefs have looked good as well. So where I like both teams, and I think it could be a coin flip game. Give me the 6 points, and I might even sprinkle a little on the Baltimore money line.
All right, so this is really interesting because if you like this, you got to jump on it. 6.5 might be hard to find right now. It's down to 6. Some places 5.5. A lot of places. Is there a point where you like to swing the line and say you would go over to Kansas City if this drops to a point where there's value then on the Chiefs, because it's fallen and it seems like more and more money's coming in on Baltimore right now?
Yeah, not gonna lay that many points. I mean, if I'm looking at something, and we talked about this as well, I'd go over. If that keeps going down, I know that's probably sharper money pushing it down from the initial 55. But I'm not gonna lay that amount of points. Baltimore has looked good, so I'll just take the points or stay away.
One big thing in this, as we mentioned, is the fact that it's a home opener for Kansas City. Kansas City's a tough place to play.
Sure is.
How much do you weigh that it's the home opener at Arrowhead for the Chiefs?
I would say it's same advantage, right? It's always Arrowhead's probably one of those places that's maybe a 3.5 or a 4. Versus a 3, but that's speculation. I don't have the data from last year. I don't know if you have that on you with, how tough they were at home versus on the road last year. So I know everyone just says Arrowhead's a tough place to play, but they got beat in the AFC Championship game there. So
to the New England Patriots, which makes a perfect segue for us. I was going to make one more comment, but you lined it up too easy for me. The New England Patriots, 21.5, 22, somewhere in that range, more than 3 touchdown favorites against the New York Jets, who just looked awful on Monday Night Football. But you like a play in the total on this one, Greg. What do you like and why?
Yeah, under 44. So basically, again, thankfully the circus is going out of town, right? So AB is out of there. Call that whatever you want to call it. It's a top 10 wide receiver leaving the team. I'm sure they were planning on having him for at least the first half of the week. So that kind of messes things up a little bit, but that's beyond the point. They game script on defense. They're great defense. They're going to load up to stop Le'Veon Bell, third string quarterback with Falk over there. I just don't see how the Jets score. So the Patriots, much better team at New England, much better defense. And offense than Cleveland. I think they're just going to. Basically, my concern is as they take the air out of the ball, that they'll, run the ball into the end zone. But I think you're looking at more of like a, 31-6, 31-3, 38-3 still works. I just don't see how the Jets put 7 on the board. So I'm going to bet against them putting 7 on the board.
Which they didn't do last week. So there you go. In fact, their offense has 1 touchdown this season and a 2-point conversion. The defense and C.J. Mosley obviously scoring the other one. A couple notes on this game. So the number right now at 44. New England is really banged up on the offensive line. I think 3 linemen are either out or doubtful for this week, which could be a big thing because as bad as the Jets looked on Monday night, their defense was still playing tough. You take away that 89-yard quick slant to Odell Beckham Jr., and all of a sudden, it's a 16-17, it goes 16-3 rather than 23-3. That game looks a little bit closer. They were fighting the whole time. Jamal Adams is going to be fired up this week after he got that fine, that absolutely ridiculous fine, in my opinion. I don't think it was a penalty. Forget the fine that they hit him with there. That defense has been really solid, and Greg Williams is going to bring pressure on Tom Brady. We know he's not mobile, and they've got the young players to be able to bring pressure right up the middle in Brady's face with Leonard and Quinnen Williams, which I believe both are expected to play this week. So that could be a difficult time just to make Brady uncomfortable. I am in no way, shape, or form calling for an upset here by the New York Jets because I agree with you completely. I don't know how they're going to score. Even if they get into field goal range, do you really trust Sam Ficken? I mean, he was 3 for 6, I think, in his career in Los Angeles with the Rams before he came over to the Jets. And, I mean, he hit one last week, but I don't have confidence for if it's a long kick for him this week. So, look, I'm picturing something along those lines, the 24-3, somewhere in that range. So I agree with you. I love the under in this one, even more than I love the Jets with the points, but I think they do end up covering in this one as well. Under 44 in the Pats versus the Jets this week. All right, I want to move to the opposite coast where the Steelers are hoping Rudolph can guide their sleigh to victory for the first time this season as Mason Rudolph. Oh, you don't like that?
Boo,
Well, this is your play here. So Mason Rudolph at the helm for the Pittsburgh Steelers as they head out to San Francisco, who are having their home opener as they started the first 2 weeks on the road, and the 49ers there. This number, about around 6.5. There are some 7s out there, so shop around for that. But you like the Steelers in this one, Greg. Why?
Yeah, the Steelers are going to bet on their team by trading away their first-round pick to pick up Minka Fitzpatrick. They know a lot more than I do, right? But, logic would tell me if they're doubling down after their quarterback goes out, I should be scooping up 7 points, right? So, we're not even talking about a win here. We're talking about lose within a touchdown. So, your starting quarterback goes out. Your team still trades away their first-round draft pick to pick up secondary help. I like the backup. He came in, played well. He probably got no reps that entire week, almost pulled out. If hopefully they're benching what's his name, that terrible wide receiver on their team at this
Oh,
point.
my goodness. Dante Moncrief.
Moncrief, yeah. I mean, you don't have him, tossing balls into the hands of the other team. We might be talking about a different story. So I think they're going to rally behind him. 7 points. I mean, congrats on San Fran. This is one of those situations where it's the first home game. They're probably smelling themselves, thinking that they're pretty good, right? I like that. I like that, and that's probably why I'm getting
smelling
the 7
themselves.
points.
That is a term.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we want the 7 points. I quite frankly like them on the field because I'm just still not convinced. There's not a ton that's changed, and you know what? If I'm wrong and Mason Rudolph looks terrible, well, shame on me. But he didn't look terrible in his first, forced into action. And I think we're going to have ourselves a good game. I'm looking forward to it. And hopefully the quarterback play is not going to be too terrible. I'm still not 100% confident in Jimmy G at this point. So Give me 7. I like it. And let's see if the Pittsburgh Steelers can pick up their first W. I think they're an animal backed into a corner here. I think they're gonna play pretty tough.
Are you going with outright on this one? You sprinkle?
Give me the 7 points. I'd rather have them outright than Baltimore.
Okay.
Because I'd rather pick against them. So let me flip that from earlier. I'll only take my points on the Ravens. I'll do a little outright action on the field for the Steelers. Go in there and just sprinkle it in there. I'm good with that.
Awesome. All right, so a couple notes on this game here. San Francisco, at least when you look at the level of competition for both of these teams, San Francisco opened the season against Tampa Bay, which is kind of still up in the air on what kind of team Tampa Bay is going to be this year. And then they went to...
No, it's not. They're awful.
Oh, well, we'll see this week. We'll get to that in just a second. But and then San Francisco went to Cincinnati and beat up on them. But the big thing in both of those games are turnovers. They have won the turnover battle handily and scored points on defense. So that's a big thing for Pittsburgh this week, is that they're going to have to protect the ball. And I think that they might even go with a little bit more conservative game plan here with Rudolph and getting his first start. And I think that plays in their favor if they can not turn the ball over. Also, for San Francisco, big loss on their offensive line. Joe Staley not going to play in this one, and he is a perennial Pro Bowler. That could be interesting to see how the offensive line has to shift to make up for that. And if the Steelers can get pressure on Jimmy G, as you said, I don't like it. I don't have complete faith in Jimmy G yet. So I like this pick as well. I don't think I'm going to be able to go and say outright with you, but I'll take the 6.5 or 7 points. Either one for me. Obviously, I like it more with a touchdown.
Load up.
Load up. All right. So you mentioned Tampa Bay being a terrible team, and that goes well to my next game because they will play host to the New York Giants this week, and Daniel Jones getting his first start at QB. The Giants right now are +6. I love this. I loved it at 6.5. If you could push it up to 7, by all means. But I'll take the Giants and the 6 points. There are a couple things here that work in Tampa Bay's favor. Obviously, they're coming off long rest playing the Thursday night game against Carolina, in which I think the Panthers basically just totally got away from their game plan. They had Cam Newton throw the ball 50 times against the Buccaneers, and that is not their strength anymore. I think Christian McCaffrey is where their strength is, and Cam Newton, obviously, we know was injured now for part of that game at the very least, and the Panthers just did not look like a team that had any fight left in them. So very interesting. This here with the Giants, we have seen everything on the field, and they have looked terrible, right? At least when it comes to the final scores. But there have been some bright spots and some other things to note about the Giants. Last week, I loved the Bills, buried the Bills against the Giants. However, they were without they had 3.5 wide receivers, I'll say, out because they did give it a go. I believe it was Cody Latimer who was questionable who gave it a go, but he's back 100% this week. They get Sterling Shepard back this week, 2 weapons that Eli didn't have. I think the team gets amped up a little bit with Daniel Jones in there because he looked very good in the preseason. They are optimistic, and the offensive line has been solid. They have been solid. There's been a lot of drops by the wide receivers. Eli hasn't had to chuck and duck as much as he needed to previously. So you give me Saquon Barkley behind that offensive line. You give me an amped-up team that is going to rally around this quarterback with getting 2 extra weapons back that Eli didn't have, and I think that the Giants are going to be able to exploit a Tampa Bay defense that was very blitz-heavy. I feel like every drive for Carolina started with a 20 or 30-yard play in the second half. They just couldn't finish and get it into the end zone. So I'll take the Giants on the road and plus the 6 points against the Buccaneers this week. I think the Giants take this one outright, Greg.
Ooh, look at you.
All right, so go ahead. Tell me why I'm wrong.
No, I have no inclination to go against you. I don't think Tampa's a good team despite the win. I don't like the long rest. I'm just not going to bet on the Giants to win. I want to see how the young guy looks. He looked good in preseason, but that doesn't really mean a lick. But yeah, I'm not going to go against you. I like points, but would you rather 6.5 with the Giants on the road or Pittsburgh on the road? That's all I'll say.
I think the teams are pretty similar right now. How about that? I think the Giants and the Steelers, and look, their opponents are pretty similar. Tampa Bay and San Francisco played week 1 until those 2 pick sixes that San Francisco had. That game was, right there. So if Jameis Winston can turn the ball over to the Giants, and we know he's been inconsistent at best throughout his career, I think there's an opportunity, especially coming off a good game that he just played. You think Jameis Winston can put back-to-back games together? I think it's very similar plays, but you're right. The extra half-point shoot, if you can get a whole nother point at 7, that's a key number right there. So.
I'm going to tweet at the Steelers that you just said that they're basically the Giants, and let's see if that motivates them.
Prove me wrong. Prove me wrong this week. We'll have 2 outright victories. All right. And to wrap us up today, Chris Portente has a money line triple header that he wants to go with. So I will put those on for you. Maybe this is a nice little parlay action if you wrap all 3 up. So the big guy with the final word on today's games, here he goes.
Seahawks, Rams, and the Chargers, money line. Okay? Seahawks are going to be a tough out at home in that loud stadium against the Saints this week. The Saints are going to go with 2 quarterbacks. They're going to go with they're going to have new wrinkles in there. They're going to have a new game plan for this new quarterback. And Peyton's an offensive genius, and he's going to throw these wrinkles in there, which normally would scare me. But communication is key when you have new personnel and new wrinkles in a game plan. And communication is one of the toughest things to master in Seattle with that 6 fan and that noise level. So I think the Saints are going to struggle, and I think the Seahawks are going to beat them. 4.5 might be a little high. That's why I say take the money line. Now, as far as the Chargers go, I'm not big on the Chargers this year. You guys all know that. But the Texans have not beaten the Chargers since ever. I mean, ever. They haven't beaten them going back to the days of leather helmets. Okay? So get on the Chargers. I like a money line because I don't have any faith in the Chargers, and I'm not real confident in them blowing out anybody this year. Okay, so take a money line, but they will beat the Texans because the Texans are not that good, and the Texans never, ever beat the Chargers. Okay? And then that takes us to the Los Angeles Rams on the road in Cleveland. Okay, now this is a night game. It's a home game for Cleveland. Cleveland might be a little pumped up and they might stay in it, but Cleveland is off. Baker Mayfield is off. I think that the off-season hype and the off-season cockiness has gotten to this team. Not to mention that the Cleveland Browns offensive line is a disaster, and Donaldson is going to have a field day. Okay, so take the Rams money line. The line is 3.5, but like I said, because the Browns, big game, pumped up, night game at home, maybe they hang around. So just to be safe, take the money line, but the Browns are not beating the Rams. Take the Rams money line and lock it up. Those are this week's plays. Happy gambling. Lock everything up. Good luck, and I'll see you guys next week. Wingfoot Sports forever.
Wingfoot sports forever, Chris Portente says. I absolutely love it. All right, so a couple of those games I just want to touch on really quick. First one, Greg, you weren't so sure about the Chargers this week as they play host to Houston. What are your thoughts on the game? Why some hesitation for you?
Yeah, they're just injured, and quite frankly, they play a lot of close games. They don't have a great home field advantage. So if I'm looking at them, the only way I would take them is money line. So I like that he's going there. But I would rather scoop up the points in that situation. I think Houston's looked pretty good. And the Chargers just seem to have another couple of injuries each week. So similar, situation as why it's tough to bet on the Eagles right now. And, teams that are getting decimated with injuries, the Chargers are one of them. And if you watch that Detroit game, again, Detroit should not be undefeated. They just, every time the Chargers threatened, they just gave the game away. So just can't really trust them. If I had to take them, I would go money line, but I'd probably scoop up the points on the other end.
Yeah, definitely. That field goal kicking, a big problem last week for the Chargers. But the one thing that I look at is we talked about bad offensive line. Houston has a terrible offensive line. Deshaun Watson has been taking hit after hit already this year. I believe he's been sacked 10 times through 2 games. That's not something that's sustainable. And despite the turnover at the goal line, the 2 missed field goals, the interception by Rivers, the Chargers defense still looked good against Detroit. And I know they're missing a couple people again on the back end, and obviously they missed Derwin James. Man, you can see that from last year, but he's been out all season. I think that the defense has been solid. They're going to cause trouble for Houston, so I like leaning towards the Chargers in that one too. Again, like I said, it's a coin flip to me, but I'll go with the money line on that. At -3, it's a coin flip. At the money line, I like it with the Chargers. The other one, he called him Donaldson, but we know Aaron Donald is who Chris was referring to in the Rams. Man, I didn't like anything that the Browns did Monday night against the Jets. I thought Mayfield was under pressure. They went for a couple 4th downs that they didn't get. I think that game was, as I said, without that 89, 90-yard touchdown to Beckham, that game was a lot closer than the final score indicates with a bad Jets team. What do you think about the Rams on Sunday Night Football?
Yeah, so a little inside scoop here. Keep your eyes peeled for hashtag according to Hoyle. I am actually watching the game in Cleveland, not at the stadium, just with my older brother and a couple of Cleveland fans. They're giving me the inside scoop. It sounds like they've got a couple of injuries themselves, but I am in total agreement with you. I don't think they're clicking. Njoku is out. That certainly can't help, right? So they have not looked like they've been firing on all cylinders. Goff is not the same quarterback on the road. We might have another Breeze and Roethlisberger fade on the road situation. That's my only slight hesitation about pulling the trigger. So that's going to be, I like the play. It would be my only way to go. I'm not taking the Browns. I'm not taking an overhyped Browns team. But this might be another load-up situation. I just want to fully understand the injury situation before I make a final decision on it. So I'll tweet that out afterwards. That way we can continue the good times.
There you go. And again, that line moving toward 4. It's 4 a lot of places right now. You can still get some 3.5s out there. All right, before we go, there was one more game that I had meant to mention that I forgot there. I am going to circle the wagons with the Buffalo Bills again this week, as they will be at their home opener in Buffalo, taking on the Cincinnati Bengals, who have their share of offensive line troubles. There's a common thread here. We're going against beat-up and injured offensive lines this week. Bills will be without Singletary, who has been a bright spot, young running back for them so far in the first 2 games. So Frank Gore will get the bulk of the carries there. He scored his first touchdown, I think, in 20 games, which is ridiculous. The ageless wonder that he is at 6 years old, I believe. So But that Buffalo defense has been very solid this season, going with their first 2 games on the road at MetLife Stadium. I think it's about a 45-minute plane ride for them, if that. Now they go home to Buffalo. They're playing a bad Cincinnati team who's averaging fewer than 30 yards on the ground per game so far this season. They cannot run the ball. Outside of a few bombs to John Ross, they have really, really struggled to move the ball this season, and I think against a really good Buffalo defense, that continues. Andy Dalton's going to be running for his life. Joe Mixon is not 100% if he's playing. You got Gio Bernard, who really is just a threat out of the backfield, not really going to carry the ball, but they've proven they cannot run the ball. It's a one-dimensional team, and I think Buffalo will take advantage at home, and I say lay the 6 and roll with the Bills, Greg.
Good with it. Got agreement here.
Awesome. Wow. Look at that. That's a good handicap. When you don't have to say anything else afterward and you just nail it down, and I think that's a great way to end it. Hey, this is week 3. We got a list of winners for you out there. I'm going to recap it one more time. We say lay the 1.5 with Indy. Take the points with the Ravens plus 6.5. If you can find it, get on it because it's moving fast. We say lay the points with the Bills minus 6. We say take the points with the Giants, the Lions, the Steelers, and the under 44 in New England. That sounds like a winning ticket. Sounds like a winning day. Happy Sunday to everybody out there. For Greg Hoyle, that's hashtag according to Hoyle, Chris Portente, and Joe Masseri, that's me. This is your Wingfoot Locks, brought to you by Wingfoot Sports. And until next time, remember, everyone, it's not whether you win or lose, it's whether or not you cover the spread. Have a great Sunday, everybody. Talk to you next week.